I'm Rakhi Pancholi. I'm the MLA for Edmonton Whitemud and the Deputy Leader of the Alberta NDP, and I'm here in my constituency office in Edmonton Whitemud in Riverbend Square, and I'm excited to have this conversation today. Why politics? That's a big question. Politics was not something that I ever planned on doing. It wasn't my goal to get into politics, but if you look at my background on paper, it looks like I was predestined to go into politics. I have always loved social studies when I was in school. I love the idea of understanding how people make decisions and why and how they can affect people. And then I went into political science at the University of Alberta for my undergrad. From there, I went to law school and did that for 13 years before somebody actually approached me and asked me if I'd be interested in running for the provincial election in 2019. And although I said, I never really planned on doing politics, when I was approached and asked, it just felt like the next step in being able to take things that I was passionate about and advocacy to the next level. So I'd followed politics for a long time, was pretty engaged in it, and I'd worked really hard to try to encourage more women to get involved in politics. I'd been part of an organization called Parity Egg. So when it came time to somebody asking me to run, I felt like it was time to use my voice on something I was passionate about, which are things like education and healthcare and a resilient province going forward. And for my kids, it felt like the right moment in time to try. And I've always been willing to put myself out there and give my full effort to something. And so I thought, you know what, I will try. And here we are 5 years later. I always knew that growing up in this province that I cared a lot about making sure that we had a society where everybody had the opportunities to succeed. My family was immigrants to this country in the late 60s from India and from Tanzania, and I'd always been taught how fortunate we were to live in this country and to have access to great healthcare and education, things that I was pretty passionate about. So for me, when I looked at the political parties, I knew that my values aligned with the Alberta NDP. They were focused on things that I cared a lot about: access to childcare for young families, early childhood education, addressing climate change and resiliency in our energy sector. I was an observer of Rachel Notley when she was Premier from 2015 to 2019. And the things that she focused on were the things that I cared about a lot. So for me, it was not even a question as to which party I was aligned with. The Alberta NDP is always focused on making sure that we can, the rising tides lift all boats, that we give opportunity to everyone, and to focus on making sure that when we take care of those who are most vulnerable, whether it be kids, whether it be seniors, whether it be those living in poverty, that we're actually taking care of everyone. And those values were my values. So that's why the Alberta NDP. Why law? I didn't actually know any lawyers when I decided to go to law school. I simply really felt like I wanted to take my passions and pursue a line of sort of profession that would allow me to do a number of things. So I wrote the LSAT, which is the entrance exam you have to take to go to law school. I worked really hard to study for it, but I thought I'll try it, see how it goes. If I do well, then maybe this is a path for me to pursue. It did go well, and so I decided every step of the way, I was like, maybe I'll try the next thing. I'm going to apply to all these law schools. I ended up going to University of Toronto for law school. I really enjoyed the opportunity to live in Toronto and to study in another province. And every step of the way, it was sort of a learning curve for me. Like I said, I didn't know any lawyers. I didn't know the different kinds of jobs. It wasn't always an easy path for me. When I got to law school, I was pretty surprised and just pretty naive about a lot of things. I was not expecting to sort of be faced with these immediate choices about my career, and it was very expensive. And so I was also concerned about what kind of work I wanted to do and what kind of work I could afford to do after graduating law school. But for me, I've always loved reading. I've always loved, thinking about logical explanations for things and making passionate arguments. I believe the law opens the door for a lot of different kinds of work. It's not just practicing law. And I think I'm sort of living proof of that. I practiced law for 13 years, but then I was, it gave me the foundation to go do something else, in my case, politics. But I've seen so many other people I went to law school with do many different things at a law school. So it felt like something that was like a door that would open up other opportunities for me. They do a lot of everything. They listen, they advocate, they make arguments, they attend things and learn about different cultures and experiences. We shake a lot of hands, we pet a lot of dogs, we hold a lot of babies if we can. But I would say the most important thing that you do as an MLA, since your job is to represent people, is to listen. I actually have no typical day of work. Every single day is different. Sometimes, like, I'm here in my constituency office, but frankly, this is not the only place. I always say I have 4 offices. I have an office down at the legislature. I have this office here in my constituency. I work out of my home, and I work out of my car sometimes. I'm on the road. I just came back from 6 days in Calgary. Every day is different. There is no typical schedule, and it's as busy or as quiet as you want it to be as an elected official. You get to pick and choose what you're going to do. And I've had late nights and early mornings, but I love this job because it's different every day. No regrets of being a politician, but there are days that are harder than others. There are days when you feel like you're not making a difference. Politics has become particularly polarizing and divisive in the last few years, and there's times when I feel pretty demoralized. But those are balanced out by really incredible days where people feel heard and you feel like you're connecting and you are making a difference. And I think that's one of the reasons why I keep going. I wouldn't say it's a regret, but I didn't know a lot about what elected life would be like, especially with somebody who has a young family. And so I probably would have talked a bit more to some other elected officials who had young families to get a picture of it before I went into politics. Actually, my favorite moment at work wasn't at the legislature. It was actually, I was a very passionate advocate for my first 4 years as an MLA on improving access to affordable childcare in this country. And back in 2021, after much pressure from myself, my colleagues, and most importantly from Albertans, the government of Alberta did sign an agreement with the federal government that basically put a big investment of billions of dollars into Alberta for childcare. And the night before that was going to be announced, and it started to kind of leak out into the public sphere that this is happening, I was overwhelmed by how many people reached out to me to thank me for my work and my advocacy. And that's one of those moments where you feel like you've made a difference. And I was not expecting that, and it was quite overwhelming and emotional, and it made me feel like I made a difference. So I go to the farmers market in my riding. They have a farmers market from May to October, and I usually set up there about every 3 weeks or so. I put up a tent, and I call those 4 hours that I spend at that farmers market good for my heart and soul, because it's a chance to just see families and people in the community out where they are. They're happy, they're buying their produce, and as the years have gone by, more and more people know me and know my work, and so there's just a lot of love and support when I go out there, and I get a chance to really have great conversations with my constituents where they are. I love those 4 hours at the farmers market. It's probably one of my favorite jobs, is just going out there and talking to my constituents where they are. 2 things I like about my work. I learn so much. I'm always talking to people who have totally different backgrounds and experiences than I've had, and I can't even believe the number of topics and issues that I have learned since I've gotten into politics. And so I love that. I'm always learning more. And then my second thing is for sure that I get to pet a lot of dogs. I am a big dog lover, and I get to meet a lot of dogs. I would like my workspace at the legislature to be a safer space for women and members of racialized and diverse communities. I don't always feel like that space is safe, and I think a lot of that has to come with the tone of politics right now. And I want to personally work really hard to change that, because I think we make better decisions when we have more people from diverse backgrounds in that decision-making space. And so it's our duty to make sure that space is safe and welcoming for everyone. I would say there's no one path to being a politician. When I get asked, particularly by young people, how they should get involved in politics, I tell them it's not about finding the right organizations that you have to volunteer for or the right thing you're supposed to do. I say find what you're passionate about, whatever it is. An example, I just talked about dogs. I used to volunteer with a dog rescue organization. That doesn't seem like something that would prepare you for politics, but it absolutely did, because it taught me about volunteer management. It taught me a lot about how to fundraise. It taught me how to galvanize and mobilize a group of people who are committed on something. So don't worry so much about finding the right path. Do the things that you're passionate about, and you will gain the skills that will help you in politics. Yeah, this Edmonton Whitemud is a constituency that's filled with a lot of families. And because of that, we have a lot of young kids who are going into school. We have a lot of kids who are finishing school or are going on to university or post-secondary of some kind. And I want to make sure that in our community, we continue to have enough skills and enough schools built that can accommodate our growing communities. Make sure that every child and every student gets the quality of education that they deserve. They have the right teachers and the right support staff. And that's something I really want to focus on for this riding, is making sure particularly that we have enough schools and opportunities for kids as they grow up. That takes a long time to build schools and to make all that happen. But it's so important to making sure that kids have every opportunity to succeed. And for the province, I just actually want to bring the conversation back, both in my riding and across the province, to talk about the positive we can do in government, and that there's hope and opportunity in this province. And I want to stop talking about what divides us and rather talk more about what unites us, because I think there's a lot that does. And so I want to change the tone of politics a little bit around that.